To my beloved wife, I willed 60% of all my assets. The properties willed to her are hers only if she remains my widow. Should she choose to remarry or be found in any romantic partnership, her share is to be transferred to a charity organization. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Your support helps me bring more amazing stories your way. Thank you, and let's dive right into today's tale. Many years ago in the eastern part of the continent, there lived Sophia. Sophia James was the first daughter of Mr. and Mrs. James, a humble couple in a small village. With her soft smile and kind heart, she stood out not just for her beauty, but for her unshakable determination. She had 3 younger brothers who loved and admired her deeply. After completing her secondary school education, Sophia dreamed of going to the university. She wanted to study business administration and one day build a beauty brand of her own. Her parents, however, told her there was no money for further education. This broke Sophia's heart. She pleaded with them, asking them to sell one of their lands just to help her take a step forward. But her request was denied. "We can't do that," her father said. "The land is for the boys. You're a girl, you'll marry one day." Those words pierced Sophia like a sword, but she wiped her tears and stood tall. If no one would help her, then she would help herself. Determined not to remain idle, Sophia chose to learn how to make hair at a local salon. She spent 2 years as an apprentice, sweeping floors, washing hair, and watching carefully how her madam twisted and braided. She practiced on dolls, on her friends, on herself. She became good, so good that people started requesting her even while she was still learning. When she graduated, she didn't waste time. She packed her small bag and moved to the nearby city, determined to start a new life. She knew no one there, but she had her skill and her courage. She found a small corner shop in a noisy street market and paid rent with the little savings she had. At first, business was slow. People didn't know her. Some laughed at her small wooden sign and plastic chair. But Sophia treated every customer like a queen. She listened to their stories, gave them the best styles, and never overcharged. Her hands became known as blessed hands. Months turned into years. Her shop grew from a small wooden structure to a proper salon with mirrors, chairs, and even a dryer. She hired 2 girls to work with her, girls like her, who had dreams but no help. She trained them, paid them well, and reminded them never to give up. One day, Sophia was invited to style hair for a bride from a wealthy family. Her work was so perfect that the family offered her a contract to be their personal stylist. That one job opened doors for her. Soon, her name was on flyers, beauty blogs, and even the local radio. Back in the village, her parents began to hear stories of Madame Sophia Beauty World. People talked about how their daughter had become a star in the city. Her father, once proud and firm, was now full of regret. Years later, Sophia returned to the village, but not as the poor girl who begged for help. She came in a car she bought with her own money. She had built her own house in the city and even bought the same piece of land her father refused to sell, twice the price. She hugged her parents and forgave them. She gave scholarships to her brothers and opened a new salon in the village to train other young girls. Sophia had turned pain into power. And from her small salon in the city, she had built an empire, not just of beauty, but of hope. The day Sophia went to style the bride's hair was the beginning of a chapter she had never imagined for herself, a chapter of love. It was a warm Saturday morning, and the wedding venue was glowing with decoration and joy. White ribbons hung from tree branches, and the air carried the sweet scent of roses and jollof rice. Sophia arrived early, carrying her toolbox and wearing a simple peach gown that danced with the breeze. Her hair was tied neatly in a bun, and her face glowed with the confidence she had built over the years. She was busy styling the bride's hair, carefully pinning the curly bun and fitting the diamond tiara, when she noticed a pair of eyes watching her from across the room. At first, she ignored it, thinking it was just another guest admiring the bride's look. But each time she turned, she met the same gaze, calm, focused, and warm. After the bride was ready, the man walked up to her with a gentle smile. "Hi, I'm Andy," he said. "I couldn't help but notice how focused and talented you are. The bride looks like a queen." Sophia blushed. She wasn't used to compliments, especially from such a well-dressed and composed man. "Thank you. I'm Sophia," she replied, trying to hide her smile. Andy, it turned out, was the groom's cousin. He was a software engineer, living in the same city where Sophia's salon was located. They talked for a while, about work, dreams, books, and favorite foods. For the first time in a long while, Sophia let her guard down. Andy didn't talk down on her or pity her. He admired her story, her journey, and her strength. Before he left, Andy looked at her and said, "I'd really love to see you again, Sophia. Maybe for dinner. Not as a client, but as someone who wants to know you better." Sophia hesitated at first. She had built walls around her heart for years, focusing only on her goals. But something in Andy's eyes felt safe, honest, real. They went on their first date a week later. Andy took her to a quiet restaurant with soft music and candlelight. He pulled the chair out for her and listened as she talked about her childhood, her salon, her dreams. He spoke of his own struggles, losing his mother young, working through school, and trying to build his tech company from scratch. Their hearts met in honesty and simplicity. Over time, they began spending more moments together, walks in the park, late-night calls, sharing childhood stories, and even Sunday mornings in church. Andy would stop by her salon sometimes just to bring her lunch or surprise her with flowers. He loved watching her work, the way she moved with purpose and passion. One rainy evening, as they sat under the shelter outside her salon, Andy turned to her. "Sophia," he said softly, holding her hand, "I know your past wasn't easy. But I want to be part of your future. I want to build something beautiful with you, just like the way you transform people's hair, you've transformed my life. I promise to support your dreams, walk beside you through storms and sunshine, and never make you feel like you're walking alone again." Sophia felt tears in her eyes. She wasn't used to being loved so gently, so sincerely. "I've waited for someone who sees me, not just my beauty or success, but my scars and dreams too," she whispered. "And I see you, Andy. You make me believe in love again. I promise to stand with you, laugh with you, and build with you." From that day on, Sophia and Andy became more than just a couple. They were best friends, partners, dreamers. Andy helped Sophia launch her own hair care product line, and she supported his tech startup by designing creative branding and setting up contacts. They became a team. When Sophia went back to the village to visit her parents, Andy went with her. Her parents were older now, and Sophia had already started caring for them, paying for their medical bills, sending food monthly, and even renovating their house. She never brought up the pain of the past. Instead, she gave them love. And her father, with tears in his eyes, once told her, "You are the greatest blessing we ever received, and I'm sorry we didn't see it sooner." That night, as Sophia and Andy sat under the stars outside the family compound, he turned to her once again and said, "One day, I want to marry you right here, under these same stars, with your parents smiling and your dreams shining even brighter." And Sophia, resting her head on his shoulder, smiled and said, "I'll say yes, today, tomorrow, and always." Weeks passed, and the love between Sophia and Andy only grew deeper. They had built a bond grounded in trust and shared dreams. They laughed easily, worked side by side, prayed together, and supported each other in every little thing. Sophia's salon was booming, her haircare line was spreading fast through word of mouth, and Andy's tech startup had just secured a major investor. Life was blooming, but for Andy, one piece was still missing. He wanted to make Sophia his wife. So he began to plan. One weekend, Andy invited Sophia to what he called a private dinner celebration. It was held in a quiet garden restaurant on the outskirts of the city. There were hanging lanterns, soft music, and a table set just for two, underneath the stars, just like the night in the village when they had shared their first long talk about love and the future. As they ate, they laughed like old friends. After dessert, the soft tune of their favorite song played. Then, Andy stood, walked to Sophia's side, and knelt down on one knee. Sophia's breath caught in her chest. He pulled out a small, silver ring with a delicate diamond. "Sophia," he said, his voice steady but emotional, "from the first day I saw you, I saw strength, beauty, and grace. You turned your pain into power. You built a life with your own hands. And you still made room to love me. I want to spend every day cheering you on, holding your hand, and building a family together. Will you marry me?" Tears welled up in Sophia's eyes. "Yes. 1,000 times, yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger. They hugged tightly, both trembling with joy, as the staff came out clapping and spraying light confetti into the sky. The news spread quickly, through their families, friends, social media, and even her salon customers. Everyone was excited. Many had watched Sophia grow from a struggling hairdresser to a successful entrepreneur and were overjoyed to witness her moment of joy. Sophia wanted a simple, classy wedding, full of love and culture. She designed her own bridal look, natural hair in a wrapped bun with white rose petals. Her gown would be simple silk with lace sleeves. She chose soft rose gold and ivory as the wedding colors. The venue was a garden in the same city, near where she started her journey, symbolizing her growth. Andy's family worked hand in hand with Sophia's, and for the first time, her parents felt truly proud. Her father personally sent out invitations across the village. Her mother picked her fabrics with tears in her eyes, whispering blessings under her breath. Her 3 younger brothers, now grown and in school thanks to Sophia, helped in planning and even contributed money. One brother made the cake, another wrote a song to perform, and the youngest created a slideshow of Sophia's journey. Andy and Sophia attended marriage classes in church, worked on their home plans, and shared long evening talks dreaming about their future children, business expansions, and travel adventures. The morning sun rose gently over the city, casting a golden light on what would become one of the most beautiful days in Sophia's life. Sophia stood in her dressing room, surrounded by her bridesmaids, her 2 assistants from the salon, and her mother. She wore her dream gown. Her hair was styled just the way she had imagined, elegant, regal, and true to her roots. Her mother hugged her, whispering in her ear, "You've made us proud. May God bless your new home." The ceremony took place in a lush garden surrounded by flowers, family, and friends. Andy stood at the altar in a deep blue suit with a rose gold tie, eyes locked on Sophia as she walked down the aisle, arm in arm with her father. The moment she reached him, the crowd gasped at the emotion in Andy's face. His voice trembled as he said his vows. "Sophia, I promise to love you fiercely, lead you gently, and protect your dreams like they were mine. You are my blessing, my partner, my peace." And Sophia, her voice steady despite her tears, replied, "Andy, I promise to walk with you in laughter and sorrow, to speak life into your dreams, and to never stop building love and joy with you." When the officiant said, "You may now kiss the bride," the cheers that followed shook the whole garden. The reception was filled with laughter, dancing, and testimonies. Sophia danced joyfully with Andy, then with her father, then with her brothers. Andy surprised her with a special dance performance he had rehearsed with her bridesmaids. The slideshow of her journey made many guests cry. And when it was time to cut the cake, the guests chanted, "Power couple. Power couple." Andy and Sophia gave a short speech together. Love is not always about how you start. It's about how you fight, how you grow, and who stands by you through it all. We hope our story reminds someone out there that pain doesn't cancel purpose. Thank you all for being part of our joy. As the stars lit up the sky once more, Sophia and Andy held hands and looked at each other. From the girl who once begged for school fees to the woman now celebrated by a crowd. From the boy who lost his mother young to the man now holding his life's treasure. They had made it. Married life for Sophia and Andy began with both laughter and learning. Their honeymoon was simple but sweet, 5 peaceful days at a quiet beach resort. They walked along the shoreline, held hands under the moonlight, and talked for hours about their hopes for the future. Every evening, they'd sit on a swing and watch the waves roll in, Andy often whispering, "This is just the beginning." Back in the city, they moved into a modest 3-bedroom apartment, tastefully decorated with plants, photos from their wedding, and handmade gifts from friends. Andy set up a home office to run his tech company, while Sophia managed her salon and product line. Every evening, they cooked together. Andy, who had once barely known how to fry eggs, learned to make Sophia's favorite okra soup, while she learned to love his creative pasta dishes. They danced in the kitchen, laughed when the rice got burnt, and made silly videos of their cooking adventures. They had their little routines: Friday night movies with popcorn, Saturday morning devotions, and Sunday afternoon visits to local orphanages, where they gave hair care products and mentoring talks. Their love wasn't flashy. It was steady, intentional, and deeply rooted in friendship. But it wasn't all smooth. There were days of stress. When Andy lost a big contract with a foreign client, he came home discouraged. Sophia sat with him in silence, held his hand, and told him stories of how she once braided 5 heads in a day just to afford rent. "Your worth is not in your wins," she reminded him. "It's in your heart, and your heart is gold." Another time, Sophia had a breakdown when a shipment of her hair products got damaged and she lost a major distributor. She cried, overwhelmed, thinking she had failed. Andy simply held her and said, "You've built everything you have with faith and skill. This is just a storm. It will pass. And I'll be here through every one of them." They learned to argue without hurting each other, to apologize quickly, and to always pray before going to bed, no matter how tired or upset they were. One early morning, Sophia stood in the bathroom holding a small pregnancy test in her hand. Her heart pounded. 2 red lines stared back at her. She was pregnant. Tears filled her eyes, not of fear, but of overwhelming joy. She tiptoed back to their room, gently woke Andy, and whispered, "You're going to be a father." Andy stared at her, blinking slowly, trying to process the words. Then he leapt out of bed, lifted her into his arms, and shouted, "Thank you, Jesus." They danced around their room like children, laughing, crying, and already thinking of names. During the pregnancy, Andy became extra caring, waking early to make her breakfast, rubbing her feet when she felt swollen, and reading parenting books at night. He would talk to her belly, saying things like, "Hey little one, it's Daddy. I can't wait to meet you." Sophia, glowing with joy, continued to work part-time, mentoring young stylists and managing her team. Months later, Sophia gave birth to a healthy baby girl. They named her Hope, because everything about her life had been built on it. Her parents came from the village to meet their first grandchild. Her father, now a quiet, humbled man, held baby Hope in his arms and said softly, "Sophia, you've changed our name. You've changed our story." Sophia hugged him and whispered, "That's what daughters do when given the chance." They threw a naming ceremony, and the whole community celebrated. Even Sophia's former salon madam came, teary-eyed, and gifted her a set of golden baby bangles. One night, Andy and Sophia sat on the balcony, baby Hope asleep in her crib. The stars stretched above them. Andy turned to her. "You know, I used to think I needed to build an empire to be proud of my life. But now, looking at you and our daughter, I realize this is the empire. You're my greatest achievement." Sophia leaned on his shoulder and said, "And you're the home I prayed for. Everything I lacked back then, God returned through you." 10 years later, Sophia and Andy's home had grown. After baby Hope came Nathan, then Grace, and finally David, their last born, full of smiles and endless questions. Their home was always filled with noise. The clatter of toys, the sound of cartoons, school bags scattered at the door, and endless footsteps up and down the stairs. Sophia had become a full-time mother. She was no longer the woman rushing through appointments at her salon or packing hair care products for delivery. After her second child, Andy had sat her down one evening and said, "Sophia, I want you to rest. You've carried this family for so long. Let me carry it now. Focus on raising our children. I'll handle the rest." Sophia hesitated. Her business was not just a job. It was her passion, her identity, her testimony. But Andy was kind and convincing, and he promised to keep her dreams alive in the future. "When the children are older," he'd said, "you can return to it. But for now, let them grow under your eyes and heart." She agreed. And so, she poured herself into her home. She became a full-time mother, teacher, counselor, nurse, chef, and cheerleader. She was always there for school projects, PTA meetings, scraped knees, and bedtime prayers. Her children adored her. Andy continued to work hard, and Sophia supported him behind the scenes, balancing budgets, helping with ideas, and praying for him daily. Their life was stable, quiet, blessed, until one year, everything changed. It began with Andy coughing often. He brushed it off as stress or dust. But the cough lingered. Then came fatigue. He started missing meetings, sleeping more, and eating less. Sophia insisted on tests. The result was a devastating blow. Andy had a serious, long-term illness. It would not kill him immediately, but his strength would decline over time. There was no cure, only management. Sophia's world shifted. Her once strong husband, the man who carried her through her hardest years, was now the one needing care. And just like he had once done for her, Sophia stepped in without hesitation. She sold her remaining shares in her hair product company to fund his treatment. She returned to managing finances, driving the kids to school, feeding Andy, giving him his medications, and staying up at night when the pain kept him from sleeping. There were hard days. Days when Andy cried in her arms, embarrassed by his weakness. But Sophia always looked him in the eye and said, "You are still the man I love. I will not leave your side." The children helped where they could. Hope, now a teenager, took over many household tasks. Nathan learned to cook small meals. Grace prayed daily for her father's healing, and little David always sat by Andy's bedside, reading aloud and holding his hand. After 4 years of battling his illness, Andy's strength faded completely. One cold evening, as the rain tapped softly against the window, Andy called Sophia to his side. His voice was faint, but his words were clear. "Thank you for never leaving me. You gave up your dreams, to raise our family and stand by me. I'm sorry I couldn't give you more time." Sophia wept silently, holding his hand. "You gave me everything," she said. "Love, respect, a family, peace. You gave me a life worth living." With his last breath, Andy smiled faintly and whispered, "Promise me, you'll live again. For yourself, for the kids." Then, he was gone. The days after Andy's death were heavy with grief. Weeks after Andy's passing, the house grew quiet. Too quiet. The food cooked went half-eaten. The children spoke in hushed tones. Sophia sat long hours on the veranda with her journal, watching the sky, sometimes weeping silently, sometimes just staring ahead. The world around her moved on, but Sophia was still learning how to breathe in a world without Andy. Finally, the day came for the reading of Daniel's will. They gathered in the living room. Sophia, the children, Andy's 2 cousins, and a few trusted family elders. A man in a gray suit with tired eyes introduced himself as Barrister Edwards, Andy's longtime legal representative. He opened a brown folder, adjusted his glasses, and began. "This is the last will and testament of Mr. Andy Nwokocha, dated and signed 2 years before his passing." The air grew still. The will began with love. Andy had written emotional notes to each of his children, messages for when they grow up, advice on choosing friends, words of encouragement. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Then came the breakdown of assets. Andy, who had quietly built a life of investments, had shares in 3 technology companies, owned 2 pieces of land in the capital, 1 commercial plaza under construction, and significant savings in a private account. Barrister Edwards continued. To his eldest child, Hope, he willed a 30% share of the profits from the tech company in which he was the founding investor. To Nathan, Grace, and David, he willed the education trust fund and future equal shares in rental income from his commercial plaza. Then came the part about Sophia. Barrister Edwards paused, looked up briefly, and then read carefully. To my beloved wife, Sophia, who stood by me through life's brightest and darkest hours, I leave our main residence and the 2 undeveloped lands in the city. These are hers fully and freely, but with one condition. Sophia straightened. The properties willed to her are hers only if she remains my widow. Should she choose to remarry or be found in any romantic partnership, her share is to be transferred to a charity organization of my choosing. A thick silence filled the room. Some gasped. One of Andy's cousins muttered, "Ah, why would he do this?" Sophia sat frozen. The man she loved, the one she nursed and wept for, had tied her future to his memory in a way that felt more like a chain than a gift. For days, Sophia didn't speak about the will. She went about her daily life quietly, making meals, helping with homework, praying with the children, but inside, she was torn apart. She sat late into the night, rereading Andy's journals, listening to his voice notes on her phone, trying to understand why he would do such a thing. She had loved him deeply. But why would he, in death, try to control the life she still had ahead of her? She confided in an old friend, Amaka, who came to visit. "Sophie," Amaka said gently, "love is not ownership. You gave that man your youth, your strength, your loyalty. He should have freed you to live again. This is not love, this is fear wrapped in a gift." Sophia remained quiet, but she knew Amaka was right. One evening, after putting the children to bed, Sophia sat on the balcony, staring at the stars, those same stars that had witnessed her journey with Andy from the beginning. She whispered aloud, as if he could still hear her, "You were my love, I would have stayed faithful, not out of obligation, but because you were enough for me. But you should have let me choose that for myself." She spent days wrestling with her heart. The properties were valuable. Lands could secure her children's future. But the condition tied to them felt like a prison. 2 weeks later, Sophia walked into Barrister Edwards' office with quiet dignity. She sat opposite him, placed her hand on the table, and said, "Barrister, I want you to adjust the documentation. The properties should go straight to my children. I do not wish to be held hostage by a man's love, even in death. I will remain his widow if I choose. But not because I was paid to." Barrister Edwards was speechless. "Mrs. Sophia, are you certain? The will is clear." "Yes," she interrupted. "My husband built wealth, but I carry wisdom. I don't need to be owned to be remembered. Let my children enjoy the inheritance. I will build again, with my own hands, like I did before." She walked out of the office that day freer than she had ever felt. Sophia started from scratch, again. She reopened a modest salon in a quiet area. Her clients returned, eager to support her. A women's empowerment group heard her story and invited her to speak across the country. She became a symbol of strength, not just for enduring loss, but for choosing self-worth over silent suffering. Years later, as her children grew and excelled, they never forgot her sacrifice. Hope graduated and started a nonprofit in her mother's name. Nathan became an architect, and Grace followed Sophia's footsteps into the beauty industry. And one evening, sitting on her porch, surrounded by her grown children, Sophia smiled. She had lost a husband. She had given up an inheritance. But she had kept her dignity, and found herself again. Years passed. Sophia had built a name for herself, not just as a successful businesswoman, but as a mentor, a speaker, a mother of strength. Her once small salon had grown into a beauty academy. Young women from across the country came to learn from Mama Sophia, as they called her. She traveled often, speaking at women's conferences, opening empowerment centers, and even visiting schools to share her story of rising from pain to purpose. Her life was full, yet, sometimes, it felt quiet. Her children were grown. Hope was working abroad. Nathan was married with his own family. Grace had opened her own spa. David, now in university, called every week but no longer needed her the same way. And though Sophia would smile and say, "I'm blessed," in the quiet corners of her house, she would sometimes whisper, "But I am lonely." One evening, Sophia was invited to speak at a conference themed, Healing Through Purpose. The crowd was large, and the energy was high. After her moving speech, where she talked about love, loss, and finding herself again, she stepped down from the stage to a standing ovation. As she walked backstage, a man approached her, tall, gray at the temples, with warm eyes and a kind smile. "You spoke like someone who has lived 3 lives in one," he said gently. "I have," Sophia replied with a soft laugh. "One in pain, one in service, and one still unfolding." "I'm Michael," he said, offering a hand. "Retired pilot. Now, I work with an NGO that builds schools in rural areas." Sophia shook his hand. She expected the conversation to end there, but something about him lingered, his calm energy, the respectful way he looked at her, like he saw not just a public figure, but a woman. Over the following weeks, they crossed paths again, first at another event, then through a friend who invited both of them to dinner. Eventually, Michael called her one day. "I hope I'm not intruding," he said, "but I'd love to invite you for tea. Not as a famous speaker. Just Sophia." She paused. It had been years since any man had spoken to her in that tone, gentle, curious, not demanding. She accepted. They met at a quiet cafe filled with books and old music. They talked for hours. Michael shared stories from his flying years. He had never been married. Too focused on career, he said, and later on, the right woman never came. He said something that stayed with Sophia. "I've built planes, Sophia. But I never built a home. I admire people like you, who did both." Their friendship grew. He didn't rush her. He didn't flirt with sweet words or pressure. He listened. He saw her. He brought peace. The struggle within. But Sophia struggled. Sometimes, she would wake up feeling guilty, remembering Andy. She would reread his will and wonder if she was betraying a memory. She'd look at the ring she still wore. One evening, she sat with her friend Amaka and asked, "Am I wrong to feel happiness again?" Amaka looked at her with loving eyes. "Sophie, you loved Andy deeply. But he is gone. Love after loss is not betrayal, it is bravery. You gave your youth to him. He left with your permission. Now, take back your heart. Live again. Andy wouldn't want you to die in slow motion." One evening, as they sat watching the sunset, Michael finally turned to her. "I know you're still grieving, even if you smile through it. I'm not here to replace a chapter in your book. I just want to walk with you through the rest of it, if you'll let me." Sophia closed her eyes, the wind blowing gently across her face. She took his hand. "I may never love again the same way. But I can learn to love differently. Kindly, gently, freely. Yes, Michael, walk with me." They didn't rush. They didn't wear matching clothes or post romantic photos online. But they spent quiet evenings together, reading books, visiting orphanages, cooking dinner, traveling for outreach. Michael never asked her to change her name. Never asked her to forget. He honored her past, and cherished her present. Sophia laughed more. She glowed again. Not with youth, but with peace. And one day, on a quiet evening under a tree in her garden, surrounded by her grown children and a few close friends, she held Michael's hand and whispered, "This is not a second chance at love. This is love's reward for surviving." What's your thoughts on Andy's will? Should a young widow bury her future beside her husband's grave? The end. Thank you so much for watching till the end. Your time means the world to me, and I don't take it for granted. Every view, every like, every comment, they encourage me more than you can imagine. I pray that as you support me, God will support you too. May favor find you, may joy never depart from your life, and may all your dreams come true. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell to support my growth. Stay safe, stay blessed, see you next time. Bye bye.